If your hands feel numb, tingly, or weak for no obvious reason, if your feet burn with a strange fire, especially at night, or if you feel sudden, sharp, electric pains that seem to come from nowhere and that no one seems able to explain, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. It is not an exaggeration to say this could be one of the most important health messages you ever hear. What I'm about to share may finally explain why your nerves are suffering, and more importantly, what you can do to stop the damage before it becomes permanent and irreversible. Let me make you a very clear promise right here, right now. By the end of this video, you will understand the single worst poison attacking the nerves of millions of people, especially seniors, in the modern world. It is a poison most of us are exposed to, day in and day out, without ever realizing the silent war it is waging inside our bodies. My name is Dr. Robert Harrison, and I have spent the better part of my professional life, for decades, in the trenches with patients suffering from neuropathy. I've sat with thousands of people just like you, people who are scared, confused, and in pain. And one of the most frustrating, frankly heartbreaking, things I see is how often people are told the wrong story about why their nerves are failing. They're told it's just a part of getting older. They're told it's inevitable, a non-negotiable part of their diagnosis. They are told to simply learn to live with it. In a vast number of cases, that is simply not the whole truth. Today I'm going to tell you about two people, James and Sarah. Their lives took dramatically different paths. One of them nearly lost everything, his mobility, his independence, his quality of life, before we finally pieced together what was happening inside his body. The other escaped that devastating fate entirely, despite facing the same underlying risk. Their stories hold the key, the fundamental difference between surrender and survival. So I want to ask you a very direct question, and this is your first call to action. Have you personally experienced that strange tingling, that persistent numbness, or that frustrating burning sensation in your hands or your feet? And here's the more important part of that question. Did you have any idea that the food you eat every single day could be directly causing this damage to your nerves, even if you have never been diagnosed with full-blown diabetes? Please, take a moment to write your answer in the comments below. Say yes if this is you. Your story matters because awareness is the very first line of defense against this silent epidemic. Once nerve damage crosses a certain threshold, a point of no return, we simply do not get second chances. Let's talk about the feeling itself, because it so often begins as just a whisper. It's a faint, almost ignorable tingling in your toes while you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Or maybe your fingers feel a bit asleep, that dull, numb sensation you get from sitting on your hand, but this time it doesn't quite go away after a few minutes. It lingers. For so many of my patients, this is the very first whisper of a condition called peripheral neuropathy, a technical term for damage to the nerves outside of your brain and spinal cord, especially the longest nerves that travel to your hands and feet. Does this sound at all familiar? Perhaps for you, it's not a tingle, but a strange and persistent burning in the soles of your feet that gets worse at night. A cruel irony that just as you're trying to rest, the pain awakens, feeling like you're standing on hot coals. Or maybe it's the sharp, jabbing, unpredictable pains, like little electric shocks that can make you jump. Some of my patients describe a feeling that is even more bizarre. They tell me it feels like they're wearing thin gloves or tight socks, even when their hands and feet are completely bare. This phantom sensation creates a frustrating barrier between them and the world. They can't properly feel the texture of a loved one's hand, the ground beneath their feet, or the difference between hot and cold water. These are not just random aches and pains. I need you to understand this. They are distress signals, biological smoke alarms, warning you of a war being waged deep inside your nervous system. One of the greatest and most dangerous myths in senior health is that neuropathy is an event that suddenly shows up one day. It absolutely does not. It is a process. It develops silently, methodically, often for years or even decades. Over and over, I hear patients say, "Doc, this came out of absolutely nowhere." The tragic reality is that the enemy had been laying siege to their nerves for a very long time. They are commonly told it's just poor circulation or an unavoidable part of getting old. and all the while the underlying damage silently gets worse and worse. Let me be absolutely clear, without a hint of exaggeration. In a vast, and I mean vast, number of cases I see, these feelings, the numbness, the tingling, the burning, are the direct result of a poison. And the worst, most prevalent poison devouring the nerves of seniors today is not some rare industrial chemical you have to worry about. The worst poison is chronic blood sugar toxicity. And this next point is the most critical piece of information I can give you. You do not need to have a formal diagnosis of type 2 diabetes for high blood sugar to be actively destroying your nerves. Have you ever been told by your doctor that you're borderline diabetic, or that you have prediabetes, or that your blood sugar is just a little high? That phrase, a little high, is one of the most dangerous phrases in medicine. That little high is the gray zone where irreversible nerve damage so often begins. Landmark studies now show us that the condition of prediabetes causes significant nerve damage almost as frequently as full-blown diabetes. The poison is already at work, long before the formal diagnosis is ever made. When I use the word poison, I am not trying to be dramatic. I am being scientifically precise. Over time, persistently high levels of sugar or glucose in your bloodstream act as a slow-acting but incredibly effective neurotoxin. It methodically dismantles the intricate, delicate wiring of your entire nervous system. By the time you feel that very first tingle in your toes, the poison has already had a significant head start, sometimes by as much as a decade. So how can it be that something as common, as seemingly innocent as sugar, becomes such a potent poison for our nerves? The entire mystery is unlocked by understanding two simple words: chronic and high. Your body is a masterpiece of engineering, perfectly capable of handling sugar in controlled, moderate amounts. But when your bloodstream is constantly flooded with it, day after day, meal after meal, that sugar transforms. It stops being fuel and becomes corrosive. Let me walk you through exactly how this poison wages its three-front war on your nerves, step by devastating step. First, it launches an attack on the supply lines. Your nerves are living tissues. They are hungry. They require a constant, uninterrupted supply of oxygen and vital nutrients to survive and function. This lifeline is delivered by a vast network of microscopic blood vessels called capillaries. Think of these capillaries as the tiny, flexible pipes that deliver water to every home in a city. Now imagine what happens when you start pouring sludge, something thick and sticky, into that water supply day after day. Chronic high blood sugar is that sludge. The sugar molecules, over time, damage and scar the delicate, paper-thin inner walls of these capillaries, making them stiff and narrow. It's like rust forming inside those pipes. The flow of life-giving oxygen and nutrients slows from a gush to a trickle and eventually can stop altogether. The nerves are being systematically starved to death. This is precisely why the symptoms so often begin in your toes and your feet. They are at the very end of the supply line, the furthest houses in the city. They are the first to go dark when the power starts to fail. But the damage isn't just starvation. That's only the first front of the attack. The sugar also acts as a direct chemical saboteur. In a high-sugar environment, excess sugar molecules in your blood start behaving recklessly. They start sticking to things they have no business sticking to, randomly latching onto the proteins and fats that form the very structure of your nerves and their protective coating, the myelin sheath. This process creates destructive rogue compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs for short. Think of it like this. Imagine spilling sticky, corrosive soda all over the delicate wiring and circuit boards of a complex computer. The wires get gummed up, stiff, brittle, and they lose their ability to conduct electricity properly. This is what causes the numbness. The electrical signal simply isn't getting through the gummed-up wire. It's also what causes the false signals, the burning, tingling, or stabbing pain. The damaged wire starts to short circuit, firing off signals of pain when there is no actual injury. To make matters even worse, your own immune system sees these gummed-up, sticky proteins as foreign invaders and launches an attack, creating a state of chronic inflammation. This creates a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle of damage. Finally, there's the third pathway of destruction: oxidative stress. The simplest way to think of this is as an internal fire, or cellular rust. Inside each of your nerve cells are tiny power plants called mitochondria. Their job is to convert glucose into energy. But when they are constantly overwhelmed, forced to process a flood of excess sugar, they start to malfunction. They throw off dangerous metabolic sparks in the form of unstable molecules called free radicals. These free radicals are like tiny, ricocheting bullets tearing through the inside of the nerve cell, damaging its DNA, its membrane, and its internal machinery. This relentless fire, this cellular rust, poisons the nerve from the inside out. So, you have a devastating three-pronged attack. The supply lines are being choked off, the very structure of the nerve is being gummed up and corroded, and the cell's internal machinery is being set on fire. This is not a theory. This is the biological reality of what chronic high blood sugar does to your body. It is a slow, methodical, and relentless poisoning. The science can feel abstract, so let me make this real for you. I want to tell you about James. When I first met him, he was 52 years old, a hard-working construction foreman who had built his life with his own two hands. His routine was predictable: coffee with sugar in the morning, a couple of sodas throughout the day on the job site, and fast food lunches because they were quick and easy. He'd been told a few years prior that he had type 2 diabetes, but he saw it mostly as a background nuisance, a number on a chart. He didn't check his blood sugar. He didn't change his habits. His very first symptom was so subtle, so easy to dismiss, that he ignored it for months. He told me, "Doc, it was the weirdest thing. The tips of my toes just felt fizzy, like mild static electricity, or like a foot that was just waking up." Over the next 2 years, that fizz grew into something he couldn't ignore. The static electricity became a persistent, angry burning that would radiate up his feet and keep him awake at night, thrashing to find a cool spot on the sheets. He started feeling clumsy, stumbling over his own feet on the job site where he'd once been so nimble. He started dropping tools. But the moment that finally brought him, terrified, into my office was the ultimate wake-up call. He'd been walking across a work site and stepped on a 3-inch long screw. It went straight through the sole of his work boot and deep into the arch of his foot. He did not feel a thing. He walked around on it for who knows how long before another worker saw the head of the screw on his boot and pointed it out. The numbness in his foot had become so profound, so complete, that his body's most basic, essential alarm system, the sensation of pain, had been completely shut off. We were thankfully able to save his foot from a catastrophic infection, but the reality hit him like a physical blow. The poison had been left unchecked for so long that it had nearly cost him everything. Now, I want you to contrast that with the story of Sarah. Sarah was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a young child. From a very early age, she and her parents were taught the absolute, non-negotiable importance of maintaining tight glucose control. It wasn't easy. It meant countless finger pricks, careful meal planning, and a level of discipline that most children never have to consider. But she learned, and she stuck with it through her childhood, her teenage years, and into adulthood. When I saw her for a routine checkup at the age of 34, after living with diabetes for nearly 3 decades, I performed a full neurological exam. I tested the sensation in her feet with a special filament. I checked her reflexes, her ability to sense vibration and temperature. The result was astonishing. She felt everything perfectly. Her nerves were, for all intents and purposes, completely healthy. The profound difference between the fate of James and the fate of Sarah wasn't genetics. It wasn't luck. It was knowledge, followed by action. Sarah understood from day one that high blood sugar was a potential poison, and she did everything in her power, every single day, to keep that poison from flooding her system. James didn't understand the true nature of the threat until it was almost too late. Research backs up this dichotomy with stunning clarity. Massive long-term studies have shown that for people who implement tight glucose control early in their diagnosis, the risk of ever developing neuropathy can be reduced by a staggering amount. This tells us one of the most critical facts about this toxin. The poison works in silence, and therefore, early preventative action is everything. You cannot wait for the house to be engulfed in flames before you decide to look for the fire extinguisher. It would be easy to listen to a story like James's and feel discouraged or even hopeless, especially if your symptoms have already begun. But I want to shift now to the most important part of this entire video, the solution. The message I need you to hear, loud and clear, is one of hope and empowerment. You have an incredible amount of power to halt the progression of this damage. The entire strategy can be summarized in 3 simple but powerful words. Stop the poison. The poison, as we've established, is chronic high blood sugar. The antidote, therefore, is achieving and maintaining normal, steady, healthy blood sugar levels. This is the point where many people expect me to reveal a complex, difficult answer, a brutally restrictive diet, an expensive exercise machine, or some kind of miracle supplement. The truth is far simpler and much more achievable. It comes down to a few foundational rules. First, and I believe this is the most important rule I teach anyone with or at risk for neuropathy, never eat carbohydrates alone. This is a game changer. Do not eat a piece of fruit by itself. Do not eat a piece of bread or a handful of crackers by themselves. Carbohydrates, especially simple or starchy ones, when eaten alone, digest very quickly and hit your bloodstream like a tidal wave. Your blood sugar rises sharply and rapidly, and that spike is like a small chemical burn to your nerve endings. But a fascinating thing happens when you eat those exact same carbohydrates alongside some protein or healthy fat. The protein and fat dramatically slow down the digestion and absorption of the carbohydrate. That tidal wave becomes a gentle, rolling tide. The food that harms your nerves when eaten alone becomes far, far safer when it is eaten correctly as part of a balanced meal. An apple by itself is a sugar spike. An apple with a handful of walnuts or a slice of cheese is nerve protective. Second, you must eliminate liquid sugar entirely. I mean all of it. No regular soda, no sweetened iced tea, no so-called healthy sports drinks or vitamin waters, and no fruit juice. Even 100% natural, not from concentrate fruit juice is biochemically just sugar water. The fiber in the whole fruit is what nature designed to protect you. It slows down sugar absorption. Juicing removes the fiber, delivering a massive unnatural sugar load directly to your liver and bloodstream. Seniors are so often told that juice is an easy way to get nutrition. In reality, for someone with blood sugar sensitivity, it's one of the fastest and most efficient ways to poison their nerves. If you want fruit, eat the whole fruit in small portions, and preferably pair it with or eat it after a meal containing protein and fat. Third, focus on nutrient protection. This is a critical supporting role. Your nerves are not passive victims. They have defensive and repair mechanisms, but they require specific raw materials to do their job. Chief among these is vitamin B12. B12 is essential for building and maintaining the protective myelin sheath around your nerves, that electrical insulation we talked about. A shocking number of seniors are deficient in B12 and have no idea, especially those taking common acid-blocking medications or the diabetes drug metformin, both of which can interfere with B12 absorption. Magnesium and folate are also crucial players in nerve health and cellular energy. These nutrients do not cure existing damage, but they act like a shield, helping to stabilize and protect the nerve function that remains. But please, hear this word of caution. More is not better. Self-prescribing high doses of certain vitamins can be toxic and cause more harm than good. This is why testing for deficiencies and getting professional guidance is essential. Guessing can be dangerous. Fourth, incorporate gentle movement. You do not need to run a marathon or engage in punishing, intense exercise. What your starving nerves desperately need is circulation. The most effective, evidence-based prescription is gentle walking, especially for just 10 to 15 minutes immediately after your meals. When you move your body, your large muscles in your legs and core cry out for fuel. They pull glucose directly out of your bloodstream to power that movement, effectively lowering the post-meal blood sugar spike that does so much damage. This gentle activity not only helps stop the poison, but it also physically pushes blood flow into the deprived capillaries in your feet and legs, delivering that precious oxygen and nutrition. Movement, when done correctly, truly is medicine. We've pulled back the curtain today. We've unmasked chronic high blood sugar for what it truly is, a potent, pervasive, and patient neurotoxin. We've seen its devastating potential consequences through the story of James, a man who ignored the whispers until they became a roar. And we've seen the profound life-affirming power of prevention and action through the story of Sarah, who proved that a diagnosis does not have to be a destiny. Here's the part I want you to carry with you after this video ends. Neuropathy, especially when it is advanced, is not always reversible. Nerves, particularly in the central nervous system, regenerate incredibly slowly, if they regenerate at all. But the power to stop the progression is just as meaningful as a cure. Imagine what that means. Less pain, sleeping soundly through the night without burning feet, an improvement in your balance, and a lower risk of a life-altering fall. The ability to button your own shirt or feel the keys in your hand. Those changes are not small things. Those changes are life-changing. One of the most harmful and deeply cynical beliefs seniors are given is that nothing can be done. That belief, in and of itself, becomes a dangerous, self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyone on the internet promising you a miracle cure that will completely reverse decades of damage is not being honest with you. But I am here to tell you, with all the conviction I have, that anyone who tells you that nothing can be done is also wrong. There is a wide, hopeful, and achievable space that exists between those two extremes, and that is where real, tangible progress lives. The tingling, the numbness, the burning, these are your body's warning signs. They are not yet final verdicts. They are urgent signals telling you that something needs to change, and it needs to change now. Stopping the poison is always, without exception, the first and most important step. The sooner you start, the more precious nerve function you have left to protect for the rest of your life. You can take back a measure of control. You can choose a different path than the one James was on. The choice and the power to act on it is yours.